Sustained. 54 and 55 are marked at this point. Marked only. Ms. Brazil, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Bella, let me ask you some questions then about the conversations that you've had with Dr. Murray. During the time that you were communicating back and forth with Dr. Murray through phone messages and text messages, did Dr. Murray tell you that he was acting as Michael Jackson's personal physician?
Yes.
And did he also leave that type of information on a voicemail that he left for you on your cell phone on June 16th of 2009?
Yes.
And on the voicemail that Conrad Murray left for you in June 16th of 2009, did he indicate that he hoped to meet up with you or perhaps see you at a club later that month if you were working?
This is just trying to get around your...
Just a moment. Counsel, don't have territorial. Zinheim as well. Sustained.
During the voice message that Conrad Murray left for you on June 16th, did he indicate that he hoped to try to see you in person before he left on tour?
Objection to relevance.
Overruled. You may answer.
No.
Did he make any plans to meet with you during...
Objection to leading her witness.
Overruled. It's foundational. Let's hear the whole question, then I'll hear the objection.
During the phone message that Conrad Murray left for you on June 16th of 2009, did he indicate to you that maybe you were on your way to the club and maybe he would see you before he left
Objection to
on tour?
Relevance.
Sustained.
Yes.
You don't have to answer.
Oh.
The answer will be stricken. Disregard. Thank you.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Ms. Brazil, thank you. Mr. Chernoff, Cross.
No questions.
Thank
you.
May Ms. Bella step down subject to recall. Ms. Brazil.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Chernoff.
Yes, Judge.
Thank you, Ms. Bella. Thank you for your testimony. Please do not discuss your testimony or the facts of the case with any other witness until we finish the trial. And while you may step down and leave, you are to remain on call, and that means you're subject to recall up until the end of the trial if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brazil, Mr. Wogan.
People call Sade Anding.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please be seated. Please state your name for the record. Spell your first and last names.
Sade, S-A-D-E, Anding, A-N-D-I-N-G.
Ms. Anding, good morning.
Good morning.
Let me provide you with instructions, which I give to every witness in every case. The first instruction is to please sit back and relax. The second instruction is to speak loudly, and that way everyone can hear you. The third instruction is to answer a question yes or no if it's called for, rather than using slang like which can be confusing. And the last instruction is to wait until you hear an entire question before responding. In our everyday lives, many of us are used to interrupting each other because we think we know the question. We start to answer it before we hear the entire question. It's important in a courtroom to wait to hear the entire question and then answer it. Is that all okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Direct exam, Ms. Brazil.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Anding.
Good morning.
Where do you live?
I live in Houston, Texas.
In February of 2009, were you working as a waitress in Sullivan's Steakhouse?
Yes.
Is Sullivan's Steakhouse a restaurant and bar combo?
Yes.
And is that also located in Houston, Texas?
Yes.
Ms. Anding, do you recognize someone in the courtroom today that you met while working at Sullivan's?
Yes.
Would you please indicate by pointing and describing what that person's wearing?
Black vest, suit vest with a purple shirt and a purple tie.
Pointing to and identifying Dr. Murray, the defendant.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Ms. Anding, when you met the defendant, you were working at Sullivan's,
Yes.
and he came in as a patron?
Yes.
During that first meeting, did the defendant give you his telephone number?
Yes.
Did you also give him your phone number?
No.
But he gave you his phone number and invited you to contact him. Is that accurate?
Leading the witness.
I'll sustain the objection.
Dr. Murray gave you his telephone number, correct?
Yes.
At some point, did you dial his telephone number?
Yes.
And did he answer?
Yes.
After that first meeting and your telephone contact with Conrad Murray, did the two of you spend time together?
Yes.
Did you also communicate with him by calling him on his telephone?
Yes.
Did he also contact you by calling you on your cell phone or a telephone?
Yes.
Did you ever exchange text messages with him?
Yes.
So he would text you and you would also text him, correct?
Yes.
Ms. Anding, from the time you met in February of 2009 until June of 2009, did you maintain regular contact either in person or through a telephone with Conrad Murray so that you got to know each other better?
Yes.
Did Conrad Murray refer to you as his girlfriend during that period of time?
Yes, but excuse me, only in like a playing sense. If we were at my job or if any other guests tried to talk to him, he would tell them that, no, I can't talk to you because that's my girlfriend over there, and would point me out.
Is that something that he would be saying in the club location?
Well, when he said that time, it was just to play around.
Did he say that more than once?
No, just once.
Turning your attention to June 25th of 2009, did Conrad Murray call you that day?
Yes.
And where were you located, in Houston or somewhere else when he called you?
Houston.
I'd like to show you an exhibit that previously has been marked as People's Number 52. Thank you, Ms. Benson. Ms. Anding, directing your attention to the exhibit that is on the overhead projector, do you see your phone number 832-366-3832 displayed on this exhibit?
Yes.
Was that your telephone number on June 25th of 2009?
Yes.
And you reviewed phone records or looked at records prior to coming to court today indicating that that call placed by Conrad Murray to your cell phone occurred at 11:51 a.m. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Receiving a telephone call from Conrad Murray was nothing extraordinary or unusual on June 25th of 2009, was it?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. When Conrad Murray called you on June 25th of 2009, it wasn't anything extraordinary or unusual, was it?
No.
So tell me how the conversation went. He dialed you up, and what did he say to you?
What he said to me was, "Hello, it's Conrad Murray." And he said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Hello, how are you doing?" "I'm doing fine. I haven't talked to you in a while. How are you?" And then that's when he said, well, and then he didn't say anything. He just paused. And
Let me stop you for a second, please. So you exchange your normal greetings, and you said that you hadn't heard from him, you hadn't seen him in a while? Is that yes?
Yes, sorry.
Now, did you see him in May of 2009 in Houston prior to this phone call?
Yes.
And the two of you went to dinner?
Yes.
So back to the telephone conversation, you exchanged your greetings, and you asked Dr. Murray how he is doing?
Yes.
And what did he say to you?
He just said, well, and then paused.
And then what happened?
And then that's when I said, well, let me tell you about my day. And I started telling him about my day.
And did he respond back to you?
No, that's when I realized he was no longer on the phone.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I was just talking, and the next thing you know, it's like I said hello, hello, and I didn't hear anything. And that's when I pressed the phone against my ear, and I heard mumbling of voices. It sounded like the phone was maybe in his pocket or something. It was shh, and I heard coughing, and nobody answered.
Okay, let's go back a bit. So at some point during your conversation, you realize that he's not saying anything back to you. Is that accurate?
Yes.
About how long into your conversation with him would you estimate that he stopped responding or speaking back to you?
I'll say maybe, well, when I realized 5 to 6 minutes, but he probably could have been off the phone before that.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, about 5 or 6 minutes into the telephone call, you realize that he had not been saying anything back to you. Do I have that right?
Yes.
So you told us that you pressed the phone closer to your ear and you heard sounds that made you think that the phone might be in his pocket or something?
Yes.
And describe the coughing sounds that you said that you heard, please.
The coughing sounds I heard was more of
Did you recognize any voices?
no, it was the phone, I couldn't really hear as much. I just heard mumbling.
You heard mumbling? Mm-hmm. Is that yes? Did you recognize the mumbling to be from Conrad Murray's voice that you recognize, or some voice that you did not recognize?
I didn't recognize the voices at all.
And you indicated to us that you kept saying hello, hello. Did you say anything else in the phone besides hello, hello?
From what I remember, I said, hello, hello, are you there? Hello.
And you repeated that phrase or those words several times?
Yes.
Did you ever receive an answer from Conrad Murray to any of your questions or statements of hello?
No.
What did you do next?
I hung up the phone and I tried calling back and there was no answer. I tried calling back again, no answer. I tried texting over and over and no reply.
And at some point later that day, you of course learned that Michael Jackson died. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ms. Andine, I'd like to turn now to your next conversation with Conrad Murray after the conversation that you've just described for us that occurred on June 25th, 2009. Around...
Yes.
Please.
Thank you. Ms. Brazil.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Ms. Andine, as I was saying, around July 23rd of 2009, were you notified by your father that LAPD detectives were in Houston and would like to speak with you?
Yes.
Once you learned that the police from Los Angeles had arrived in Houston to speak with you, did you contact Conrad Murray?
Yes.
Did you call him on his phone?
Yes.
Did you speak with him?
Yes.
Did you tell him that the detectives from Los Angeles were present and wanted to speak with you?
Yes.
What, if anything, did Conrad Murray say to you when you gave him that information?
Objection, Judge.
Thank you. The objection will be overruled. You may answer that.
He told me, why are they calling you? I'm so sorry that they're contacting you, and now you're in this. I'm going to give you my lawyer's number. Call him and make sure before you speak to LAPD you have my lawyer present.
Thank you, Ms. Andine. I have no further questions.
Ms. Brazil, thank you. Mr. Chernoff, cross, please.
Ms. Anding, it's nice seeing you again.
Nice seeing you too.
Let's talk about the phone call that you had with Dr. Murray on June 25th, okay?
Yes.
You said that you heard mumbling.
Yes.
Yeah. And you said that what you just said is, I didn't recognize voices at all.
Yes.
So it could have been any voice, frankly.
Correct.
Could have been Dr. Murray, for instance.
Correct.
Okay. You had asked to estimate the amount of time that had gone by before you started you realizing that Dr. Murray wasn't paying attention.
Yes.
I want to ask it a different way, okay?
Yes.
How long were you on the phone after you realized that Dr. Murray wasn't paying attention? How long were you on the phone before you hung up?
I don't recall.
Would it have been a minute?
Can you repeat the question? I'm not.
Okay. I want to take you back there. All right, you're on the phone.
Yes.
You realize that Dr. Murray's not listening, right?
Correct.
And you hear ruffling and mumbling and coughing, right?
Correct.
How long did you listen to that before you hung up?
3 to 4 minutes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Chernoff, thank you. Ms. Brazil, redirect.
Nothing. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. May Ms. Anding be excused subject to recall, Ms. Brazil?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Chernoff?
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Anding, thank you for your testimony. Please don't discuss your testimony or the facts of the case with any other witnesses till we finish the trial. You may step down and leave. However, you are to remain on call, and that means you're subject to being recalled up until the end of the trial if necessary. Okay?
Absolutely. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Brazil? Mr. Welcome.
I'm going to check the hallway, Your Honor. For
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. People call Nicole Alvarez.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please be seated.
Thank you.
Please state your name for the record, spell your first and last names.
Good morning. My name's Nicole Alvarez. That's spelled Nicolealvarez.
Ms. Alvarez, good morning.
Good morning.
Let me provide you with instructions, which I give to every witness in every case. The first instruction is to please sit back and relax. The second instruction is speak loudly, and that way everyone can hear you. The third instruction is to answer a question yes or no if it's called for, rather than using slang such as which can be confusing. And the last instruction is to wait until you hear an entire question before you even start to answer it. In our daily lives, most of us are used to talking over each other because we think we know what the question is and we want to answer it. But in a courtroom, it's important to hear the whole question first and then respond to it. Is that all okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Direct, Ms. Brazil.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ms. Alvarez, you of course recognize the defendant seated here in the courtroom, correct?
Yes.
Indicating Dr. Murray.
In 2009, were you involved in a relationship with Conrad Murray?
Yes.
In March of 2009, did you give birth to a son?
Yes.
And that son's father is Conrad Murray. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
Did you give birth here in Los Angeles
Yes, I did.
at Cedars-Sinai Hospital?
Yes.
At the time that you gave birth, were you and the defendant living together?
Yes.
And that would be at 15406 6th Street in Santa Monica?
Yes, that's correct.
And how long had you been living at that address as of June of 2009?
I would say 3 to 4 years.
And when you moved into that location, did you move in with the defendant or did you move in on your own?
I moved in alone.
Ms. Alvarez, how old are you?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
I'll overrule the objection. You may answer it.
29.
And in June of 2009, ma'am, was your home phone number 310-310-8070?
Yes.
And was your cell phone number at that same time frame 310-497-1115?
Yes.
I'd like to ask you questions now about your relationship with Conrad Murray. When did you first meet him?
I first met him, I believe it was in 2005.
And where did you meet?
I met him out.
Where did you meet him?
I met him out in a social setting.
Was that a club?
I believe so.
And was the club located in Las Vegas?
Yes.
Were you socializing at the club as well?
Yes.
Is it a place that you'd socialized on a regular basis?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Was Conrad Murray a guest at this club?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled. You may answer.
He was there, yes.
Well, you met him there. Was he working there or was he a guest?
I believe he was a guest.
Are you certain about that?
Yes.
And after you met him at the club, did you begin contact with him?
Yes.
Did you have an exchange of telephone numbers?
I believe so.
When you met Conrad Murray at the club in Las Vegas, where were you living?
In Los Angeles.
Where was Conrad Murray living when you met him?
I believe in Las Vegas.
You're just not sure where he was living? I mean, you said you believe. Do you know where he was living?
I've never been to his private residence, so no.
So when you exchanged numbers with him, you weren't really sure where he was living. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
At what point in time did your relationship develop into a personal relationship with Conrad Murray?
A few months.
So a few months after your first meeting in 2005, your relationship became a personal relationship?
We were friends for a while, yes.
And at some point, did your relationship progress to something beyond friendship?
Yes.
And did the two of you spend time together on a regular basis?
Yes.
Did you see him in Los Angeles or Las Vegas? Or both?
Both.
Ms. Alvarez, at some point during your relationship with Conrad Murray, did he tell you that he was Michael Jackson's doctor?
At some point, yes, I did.
When was
learn
that?
Perhaps in 2008.
Did Conrad Murray also tell you that he treated Michael Jackson's children?
He didn't get into the details. I knew that he was his personal physician, but I didn't hear of him ever treating his children.
So he only told you that he was treating Michael Jackson. He didn't tell you that he also had treated Michael's children. Is that accurate?
Yes.
When Conrad Murray told you that he was Michael Jackson's physician, were you interested in that information?
Absolutely.
And why is that?
It's Michael Jackson.
Must have been pretty exciting.
Definitely.
Did you ask Conrad Murray what type of care he was giving to Michael Jackson?
I don't recall asking him any questions. No.
But you were interested, you just don't remember if you asked him any questions or not?
I was extremely interested, but I just respected his profession, and I know that wasn't his common practice to discuss his duties. So I didn't ask him. I figured that if he wanted to share information, he would do it on his time.
Did you, in fact, meet Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
And who introduced you?
Dr. Murray?
When was that?
I want to say it was sometime in 2008.
Was it before you had your son?
Yes.
And how did it come about that you got to meet Michael Jackson?
I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
Why is that? What is confusing about it?
Because it's Michael Jackson.
Well, your boyfriend, Conrad Murray, was treating Michael Jackson, correct?
Yes.
And you were aware that he was treating Michael Jackson, correct?
Yes.
So how did it come to be that you actually got to meet Mr. Jackson in person? Did Conrad Murray arrange that for you?
Yes, he did. It actually was a surprise. I remember him saying he wanted me to meet someone. So I didn't know where I was going. And that was what happened. And I was speechless when I met him. I couldn't believe I was meeting Michael Jackson.
Did Conrad Murray take you to Mr. Jackson's home?
Yes.
And is that where you met Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
And how much time did you spend with Mr. Jackson when you met him?
It was a brief visit. It was a brief visit.
Must have been pretty exciting.
Yes.
Had you met other of Conrad Murray's patients or just Michael Jackson?
I've met a few of his patients, yes.
Would that be patients in Las Vegas?
I don't recall ever meeting any patients in Las Vegas, no.
Where did you meet his patients?
In Houston.
And that would be before Michael Jackson's death or after?
That would be after, I believe.
So at the time that you met Michael Jackson, was he the only patient of Conrad Murray's that you had met?
I believe so, yes.
Did you accompany Conrad Murray to Mr. Jackson's residence on occasions after you met him?
I did a few times, yes.
Approximately how many times?
2 or 3 times, I believe.
And what would be your estimation of the month and year of the times that you went with Conrad Murray to Mr. Jackson's residence?
I can remember because Michael was very interested in the baby. He saw my stomach grow with the pregnancy, and he wanted to schedule visits so that he could see my son. So it would be March, probably April, May, June.
Well, your son was born on March 2nd, correct?
Yes.
So it's your testimony that the times that you went to Mr. Jackson's residence was after your son was born, correct?
Yes.
And you took your child over to Mr. Jackson's house to see Mr. Jackson, correct?
Yes.
Would this be in the daytime or the evening times?
I believe maybe 1 or 2 times were in the day, and I remember going one evening.
And when you went to the residence, did you travel with Conrad Murray or did you travel on your own?
I traveled with Dr. Murray.
Ms. Alvarez, during the time that you have been involved in a relationship with Conrad Murray, to your knowledge, where was he practicing medicine? What locations?
I was aware that he was practicing in Las Vegas and Houston.
Any other locations?
To my understanding, I knew that he had practiced in California, so I wasn't sure of a specific location, but I knew he had a history in California, a medical history somewhere.
Did he have a practice in California?
I'm not sure.
He might have.
Maybe.
Did he ever mention to you, hey, I'm going to the office and I'm going to go see patients here in California?
Never.
But he did speak to you about treating patients at his location of his medical office in Las Vegas, Nevada, correct?
Yes.
And he also described for you his practice in Houston, Texas, correct?
Yes.
So he never mentioned a practice in California.
No.
Double negative.
Is it correct that he did not reveal to you or mention to you any specifics about having a medical practice in California? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, you told us that you're aware that Conrad Murray was treating Michael Jackson. Did that treatment, as you're aware, occur here in Los Angeles?
Yes.
Were you aware of whether or not Conrad Murray was treating any other patients in California?
No.
No, you're not aware, or no, you do not believe he was treating any other patients here in California?
No, I'm not aware.
Ms. Alvarez, are you living with Conrad Murray at this point in time?
Yes.
And back when your relationship with Conrad Murray became more serious, certainly before the birth of your son, was Conrad Murray living at your residence?
Yes.
Was he also providing financial support to you?
Yes.
Did he pay your rent?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled. You may answer it.
Yes.
And what was your rent in the time period of April through June of 2009?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
Maybe around $2,500.
Did Conrad Murray also help you with other financial aspects, utilities, food, and so forth?
At times, I was working, so that was his choice. If he wanted to pitch in, if he felt the need to do that, that was his choice.
And you were working where?
I am an actress with the Screen Actors Guild since 1998.
And where were you working in June and May of 2009?
I was acting.
Describe for me, please, what you were doing.
Well, as a professional actress, my daily duties consist of maintaining my instrument, going on several castings throughout town, meeting with different casting directors, and continuing to study and refine my craft. So I was working. Acting is a little bit different than a 9 to 5. It's a little bit different. I don't have an office that I go to.
Certainly. Let me stop you.
Driving to a
Ma'am.
casting is my job.
Let me stop you and ask you another question.
Yes.
When you refer to an instrument, what are you referring to?
Myself.
I see.
Myself. As an actor, your instrument is yourself.
So would it be accurate to say that primarily in the time period of April through June, you were focusing on keeping yourself prepared to audition for some event that would be available to you? Is that accurate?
I was working, I was auditioning, and I had, I believe at that time, I had several national commercials running on air. So I was very busy juggling my profession and being a young mother. I was very busy.
Did you speak with Mr. Jackson about your interest in the entertainment industry and your acting career when you met with him?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained. 350, 352.
I'd like to turn now to the months. Ma'am, I'd like to turn now to the months of April, May, and June of 2009, focusing first on April. Was Conrad Murray living with you in your apartment in Los Angeles in April of 2009?
Yes.
Was he living with you on a full-time basis? In other words, every day?
While he was working, I believe, continuing to maintain his practices in Houston and Vegas, so he wasn't there on a full-time basis.
Were you aware that he was treating Mr. Jackson in April of 2009?
I was aware that he was his personal physician.
Were you aware that he was providing treatment to Mr. Jackson in April of 2009?
I was aware that he was his personal physician, so
Do you understand my question?
no.
Okay, I'll try to make it.
No, I understand your question. My answer is no.
Okay, so let's back up, please. In April of 2009, Conrad Murray stayed at your apartment, correct?
Yes.
And would he leave in the evening times to go to his job as Michael Jackson's physician?
Yes.
And what did you believe that Conrad Murray was doing in relationship to the time he spent with Michael Jackson?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled. I'm sorry, what?
Relevance.
Overruled on that ground. You may answer.
I didn't believe anything. I knew he was working with Michael. To what capacity, I wasn't sure.
Well, you said earlier that you knew that he was Mr. Jackson's personal physician. Did I understand you correctly when you provided that answer?
Yes, Mrs. Brazil.
So at that point in time, in April of 2009, when Conrad Murray would leave in the evenings to go to work, he was providing care for Mr. Jackson, correct?
Yes.
And during the month of May, he was still going back and forth to his medical practice in Las Vegas as well as his practice in Houston, correct?
Yes.
And when he was staying at your apartment in April of 2009, was he maintaining a routine of providing care for Michael Jackson primarily in the evening times?
Yes.
And describe what you observed or knew to be his routine as it relates to his working as Mr. Jackson's attorney, working as Mr. Jackson's physician in April of 2009.
Describe to you the routine?
Yes,
My observations?
Yes, I'm interested in his schedule. You've told us that he provided care to Mr. Jackson primarily in the evening times, correct?
Yes.
So I'm interested in your knowledge or observations of his routine as it related to his schedule of providing medical care to Mr. Jackson.
Okay. I remember that he would leave at around 9 p.m. And I'm using 9 p.m. as a marker because I would put my son to sleep at 9. So I specifically remember him leaving around that time. And he would return in the morning, sometimes early morning, sometimes 10, 9. I remember that when he would in the beginning when he was working for Michael, he would come back early, really early, like 6 or 7. And then it went to 8, and then it was 9. It became later and later.
And when you say 6 and 8 and 9, you're referring to the AM time, correct?
Yes.
During the time that Conrad Murray was at your apartment in April of 2009, would his schedule be regular in that every night that he was there, would he keep the schedule that you just described for us in providing care for Mr. Jackson?
Leaving around 9 p.m. and returning in the morning, yes.
And it was every day that he took those duties. Is that accurate?
I don't recall if it was every day. I don't recall if it was exactly every day, like Monday through Sunday. Is that what you, or are you meaning Monday through Friday?
I'm just referring to the frequency, so however it is easier for you to describe it, that's fine.
Every day, very frequently. Some days he wouldn't go.
That would be perhaps a day off.
Yeah.
I'd like to turn now to the month of May of 2009. Was Conrad Murray living with you at your apartment in May of 2009?
Yes.
And at that point in time, was he also, to your knowledge and observations, providing care to Michael Jackson?
Yes.
And would the schedule that you've just described for us related to Conrad Murray's activities in April be the same in substance in May? For example, would he leave around 9 p.m. as you described, be gone for the entire evening, and then return sometime in the morning hours of the next day? Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
And it was your understanding, ma'am, that Conrad Murray was providing care to Mr. Jackson, correct?
Yes.
And that care was being provided at Mr. Jackson's residence. Was that your understanding?
I guess so, yes.
Well, did Conrad Murray ever tell you where he was going when he was leaving every night and providing care to Michael Jackson?
I think it was just understood. He never would tell me specifically every day, I'm going to Michael's. It was like, I'm going to work. So I guess I assumed he was going to Michael's residence, yes.
And you didn't have any reason to think he was anyplace else, do you?
No.
Did you ever call Conrad Murray after the time that he left your residence during the time that he was caring for Michael Jackson?
Yes.
And how frequently or how often would you call Dr. Murray while he was working for Mr. Jackson?
I don't recall it being too frequent. I was very tired.
But you would in fact call him?
At times, yes.
And when you called him, did the two of you have a conversation?
It was always very brief. So a short conversation, yes.
Turning now to the month of June. In June of 2009, was Conrad Murray living with you at your apartment on 6th Street in Santa Monica?
Yes.
Was Conrad Murray's schedule much the same in the month of June as it relates to his leaving in the evening hours to provide care for Michael Jackson?
Yes.
Would you say that in June, Conrad Murray spent more time at your apartment and then going to work for Mr. Jackson in June than he did in the previous months, or about the same?
I think it's fair to say probably about the same.
And you describe that as being virtually every night except a night off here and there?
Yes.
Let's strike that. So you were obviously aware that Mr. Jackson was preparing for his concert tour in London, correct?
Yes.
Did Conrad Murray ever tell you that he had attended rehearsals?
I don't recall.
Did you ever ask Conrad Murray if he attended a rehearsal?
No.
You weren't even curious about how it was going?
I thought I was going to see the show.
Well, were you planning to accompany Conrad Murray to London?
Yes.
And when did you become aware that you would be accompanying Conrad Murray to London?
I want to say it was sometime after March.
Would that be, you're placing that after the time your son was born?
Yes.
Were you aware that Conrad Murray was negotiating his contract for employment services as Michael Jackson's physician
Objection.
prior to the...
Sorry.
I'll sustain the objection. You can ask the specific question of whether she was told by the defense.
Did Conrad Murray tell you that he was negotiating a contract for payment for his services as Michael Jackson's physician?
I wasn't aware specifically about the negotiations that were involved, but I knew that we were planning to go, and they were working things out as to about where we were going to be living, the time frame. So as to the details, I'm not sure what that involved now.
Well, did you know that Conrad Murray's monthly compensation was set to be $150,000 per month?
I learned that later on, but at the time, no.
How did you learn that later on?
Through what I've gathered through the media and news. And
Didn't you see it on the contract when the contract was faxed to your apartment?
no.
Objection, leading lack of foundation.
As soon as facts not in evidence, the objection is sustained, the answer is stricken. Disregard, please.
Ma'am, do you have a fax machine, or did you have a fax machine in your apartment in 2009 in June?
I did have a fax machine, but it was never, it's not a fax machine that's hooked up. It's off to the side, and because of the phone line is across the room and it's not in a convenient place, it doesn't stay on. So if someone is going to receive a fax, they need to move the fax machine and hook it up. So I had one, yes.
And didn't you receive a fax and notify Conrad Murray that his contract had been faxed to him in late June of 2009?
I don't.
Objection, leading.
Oh, you may answer.
I don't ever recall receiving a fax for him.
Ms. Alvarez, in September of 2009, do you remember testifying in a court proceeding?
Yes.
And in fact, Mr. Walgren asked you questions, correct?
Yes.
And during that proceeding, Mr. Walgren asked you whether or not you saw the contract between AEG and Dr. Murray, and your answer was yes. Do you recall that?
I do recall.
And Mr. Walgren asked you, and in that contract, it indicated that he would be receiving a monthly payment, and your answer was yes.
I never read the details of the contract. If it came through my fax, I recall seeing a fax, but as to what it was, I don't recall that.
Ms. Alvarez, Mr. Walgren asked you what was that amount, and your answer was $150,000, I believe. Question, a month? Answer, yes. Mr. Walgren then asked you, and how was it that you saw that contract? Answer, it was in the fax machine. At your apartment? Yes.
That is correct.
So it is, in fact, accurate that you received a fax at your apartment and you looked at the contract and were aware that Conrad Murray was seeking and would be paid $150,000 per month.
I honestly don't recall that. If it was in the fax machine, then it was in the fax machine. It's not something that I was accustomed to doing, his business and receiving his faxes. I'm not his secretary, his assistant. I don't recall the specifics. But yes, if it was in the fax machine, then that is correct.
Well, in fact, you were under oath at the prior proceeding when you were answering Mr. Walgren's questions. You remember that, don't you?
Yes.
And you answered truthfully and told Mr. Walgren that the contract had come through the fax machine. You were curious and you looked at it, and that's how you knew some details about the contracts. You would agree that you told the truth when you told Mr. Walgren that, didn't you, Ms. Alvarez?
Absolutely. But as of this moment, I don't recall that specific moment. There's been a lot that has been going on over the past 2 years, and things do become very blurry. So if that's what I said, that's what happened.
So in fact, thank you, Ms. Walken. So in fact, you knew in September of 2009 some of the details concerning the tour and your plans to accompany Conrad Murray. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Were you planning to give up your apartment in Santa Monica, or were you going to keep it when you went on tour?
Overruled. You may answer it.
Okay. I wasn't sure what I was going to do yet.
Were you pretty excited about going on tour?
Yes.
So when did you start packing to go on tour?
I never finished packing.
Did you know when you were leaving?
No.
Were you expecting that you would find out those details
Eventually.
shortly?
Yes.
And how long were you planning in your mind that you were going to be gone?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled. You may answer.
In my mind, I knew that I would be gone at least up until the holidays, and we'd be back for Christmas.
So it was your understanding that you would return sometime in December?
November or December, I believe.
Your Honor, what time is the court planning to take our morning recess?
Just about now.
That would be a good time, Your Honor.
Let's do that, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take the mid-morning break. Please remember all the admonitions. We'll take a break until 11:15. We'll see you at 10:45. Thank you. Watch your step.